Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. Today, we are going to be looking at
Women in Web3.
yeah,
It's a really fascinating
space right now.
Yeah, and we have some very interesting sources. We
Yeah.
have this LinkedIn article by Kelroy James talking about
Yeah,
all of these amazing women who are
amazing women doing incredible things.
leading the charge
Yeah.
in Web3. And then also McKinsey did some research and found some very
Really interesting
surprising
things.
things about women in the metaverse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, when we think about Web3, we often focus so much on the technology itself, but the real story is about the people
Right.
who are shaping it and using it.
Yeah.
And women are playing a much larger role
Yeah.
than I think a lot of people realize.
Well, and it's funny because, we talk about this future with Web3 and, this idea of everyone being so connected and so empowered, but there's a huge piece of the puzzle missing.
Globally, 37% of women don't even use the internet.
Wow.
And there are 259 million fewer women than men who have access.
Yeah.
That is
That's a massive digital gender gap.
Yeah, that's a massive problem.
And that's something we can't ignore.
Absolutely. And, think about it this way.
Yeah.
If Web3 is supposed to be this great equalizer, right? This open door to opportunity and all this stuff, what happens when millions of women can't even get through the door?
Right.
So the implications, particularly for developing economies, are pretty staggering.
Absolutely.
And we're talking about limiting access to, education, healthcare, economic opportunities. The list goes on and on.
It's like we're building this amazing city of the future, but half the population can't even get in.
That's a great analogy.
So that's the challenge.
Yeah.
But then I came across this data point from McKinsey that just totally blew my mind.
Right.
Women are actually spending
What is it?
more time in the metaverse than men.
Oh.
I had to read that twice.
Really?
What's going on there?
That is fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
It seems that women are particularly drawn to these metaverse experiences that blend the physical and digital worlds.
Yeah.
Think augmented reality shopping, where you can try on clothes virtually, or virtual fitness classes with motion tracking.
Yeah.
These hybrid experiences offer a sense of familiarity and practicality that really seems to resonate with women.
Okay, so it's not just escaping into this fully virtual world. It's enhancing the real-world experience.
Yeah.
I got it. But why are men leaning more toward things like gaming and NFT trading in the metaverse?
Well, those activities tend to be purely digital, right? With less of a connection to the physical world.
Right.
And while there's nothing wrong with that,
Yeah.
it does suggest a different approach to the metaverse.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting here is that women are, in a way, driving this adoption of these hybrid experiences. Right.
Which could really ultimately shape the future
Yeah.
of how we all interact with the metaverse as a whole.
Yeah. So women are kind of like the pioneers
In a way,
of figuring out how to
bringing those two worlds together.
integrate these technologies into everyday life.
Yeah.
That's pretty powerful.
That is, and it challenges that traditional narrative about technology adoption, doesn't it? It's not just about who's building the technology.
Right.
It's about who is using it and who is shaping how it evolves.
All right. So now let's get into the nitty-gritty of how Web3 technology can actually make a difference for women.
Yes.
Especially in those regions that are most impacted by the digital gender gap. I'm talking about blockchain.
Blockchain,
That mysterious technology
that everyone's talking about.
that everyone's buzzing about.
Yeah. It's not just about cryptocurrency, which is what a lot of people immediately associate with blockchain.
Right.
Kelroy James, in his article, highlights some amazing ways that blockchain can actually address those very inequalities that we've been discussing. Like financial inclusion.
Yeah. Give me an example.
Okay, so imagine a woman in a rural community who doesn't have a bank account or access to traditional financial services.
Yeah.
With blockchain, she can have a secure digital wallet to save money, receive microloans, and even participate in international commerce, all without needing a traditional bank.
That's a game changer.
It really is. Yeah.
And what about this supply chain transparency thing?
Supply chain transparency.
That sounds a little abstract to me.
Let's say you're a female farmer who grows amazing coffee beans,
Right.
But, because of all these middlemen and the lack of transparency in the supply chain, you're not getting a fair price for your product.
Right.
Blockchain can change that by tracking your beans from your farm to the final consumer using a transparent and tamper-proof system. You now have proof of origin and proof of quality.
That's amazing.
Which gives you more bargaining power. And ensures that you get paid what you deserve.
Wow. I'm starting to see how this technology can really empower women at such a fundamental level.
Yeah, technology is only one part of the equation, though.
Right.
Right.
It's got to be paired with...
The real magic happens when we combine it with human ingenuity and a commitment to social impact and a willingness to actually challenge these existing systems.
It's about using this powerful tool.
That's right.
To break down these barriers that have been holding women back for far too long.
And it's not just about creating solutions. It's about making sure that those solutions are accessible. And affordable and user-friendly for women.
Yeah. Especially in the communities that are most in need.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so we've painted this picture of this future where women are leading the charge in the metaverse. Blockchain is empowering women in all these incredible ways. But let's face it, the reality on the ground...
a little bit
more complicated.
Right.
We can dream big. But we also need to acknowledge this gap.
What's the current landscape of the Web3 industry looking like when it comes to women's participation?
Well, a study by the Boston Consulting Group found that only 13% of Web3 startups have a female founder. And here's the kicker. Even those startups that are led by women are getting significantly less funding than their male-led counterparts.
That's a huge problem. That is a huge problem.
We're talking about all this potential and all these possibilities, but if women aren't even getting a seat at the table...
if they're not even at the table?
How can we expect them to be?
How can they be part of building this future?
Right.
It's a classic case of the more things change, the more they stay the same. The tech industry in general has really struggled with diversity, and it seems like those same patterns are being replicated in the Web3 space.
It's really disheartening to see that if we want to break this cycle, we have to be intentional.
We have to be very intentional
about creating these opportunities for women.
Absolutely. And, it's about shifting the mindset. Creating a space where women aren't seen as outliers or tokens, but are actually...
They're integral players in building this future.
Integral players in building the future of Web3.
Okay, so we've laid the groundwork. We've explored the potential. We've acknowledged the challenges. But this isn't just a conversation.
No, it's not
about statistics and trends.
This is about real people.
Is it?
Real stories.
It's about real impact.
Real stories. Real impact.
And that's where things get really interesting. We have a whole section coming up.
I'm excited.
That spotlights the incredible work that women are already doing in the Web3 space.
And that's where we'll pick up in part 2 of this deep dive.
Sounds good.
Stay tuned.
All right.
See you then. Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of women in Web3.
We're picking up where we left off, and I'm really excited to kind of shine a light on some of these amazing women who are already leading the charge in this space.
So it's so important to highlight that, right? We talk about the challenges, the funding gap, the lack of representation, but there's this whole other side to the story.
Right.
A story of resilience and innovation and a determination to break down barriers.
Okay, so before we get into specific names and projects, let's zoom out again and talk about the broader landscape here.
Sure.
Why is it so important to have women's voices represented in Web3, especially in those leadership roles?
Think about it this way. If the people who are building the future of the internet don't reflect the diversity of the world we live in, then we risk creating a digital space that perpetuates those existing inequalities.
It's like building a house with only one blueprint.
Ooh, I like that.
You might end up with a structure that works for some people, but it's not going to be a home for everyone.
Exactly. Women bring unique perspectives, experiences, ways of thinking to the table, and we need those voices in the room where decisions are being made.
Right.
Not just in technical roles, but in leadership positions, actually shaping the direction of the entire industry.
And it's not even just about fairness or representation.
It's about innovation.
Right.
Diverse teams are more creative, more adaptable, more likely to come up with solutions that work for everyone.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get to the heart of it here.
Okay.
Tell me about some of the women who are making a real difference in Web3 right now.
Okay, well, one person who immediately comes to mind is Lisa Gibbons.
Okay.
She's a writer and a researcher who has done some really incredible work highlighting these women leaders in Web3.
Okay.
She actually interviewed 8 leading women in the field for an article that really dives into their journeys, their challenges, their insights.
That sounds like a must-read.
It is a really good one.
What were some of the key takeaways from those interviews?
Well, one of the things that really stood out to me was just the emphasis on collaboration and community. These women aren't just competing with each other.
Right.
They're actively supporting and mentoring each other, building a network of allies and advocates.
That's so important, especially in an industry that can feel pretty intimidating.
Especially if you're not coming from a traditional tech background.
Yeah, exactly. And these women are also challenging the status quo.
Yes.
Right.
Pushing back against that bro culture that's often associated with the tech world.
Yeah.
They're creating spaces where women feel welcome, respected, and empowered to lead.
Okay, I'm ready for some names.
All right.
Who are some of the women from those interviews that really resonated with you?
One of the quotes that really stuck with me, it was from Jillian Godsil, the founder of blockleaders.io. She said, and I'm paraphrasing here, diversity is essential for participatory economics. It's not just about bringing different skills to the table. It's about ensuring fairness in decision-making.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
It really gets to the heart of why representation matters.
Yeah.
It's not just about having women in the room. It's about making sure that their voices are heard.
Exactly.
And that their perspectives are valued.
And another woman who's doing some really amazing work is Alexandra Overgag.
Oh.
She's an advocate for using blockchain technology to empower women, particularly in developing countries.
Okay.
She's written extensively about the potential of blockchain to address issues like gender-based violence, financial inclusion, and access to education.
I love that she's not just talking about the tech.
Yeah.
She's focusing on how it can be used to create real social impact.
That's what it's all about, right?
Yeah. Are there any specific projects that she highlights?
Yeah, she mentions a project that's using blockchain to create a secure and transparent system for tracking land ownership, which can be a huge issue for women in many parts of the world.
Yeah.
She also talks about projects that are using blockchain to provide access to microfinance and educational resources. Really empowering women to become financially independent and pursue their dreams.
These are incredible examples of how Web3 can be this force for good.
Yeah.
It's not just about building the next big tech platform. It's about using this technology to create a more...
a more equitable and just world.
Equitable and just world.
That's the goal.
Yeah, and these are just a few examples.
Just a few.
Right, there are countless
other women.
Other women who are working tirelessly to make Web3 a space that reflects their values.
Their values and priorities.
And their priorities.
Yeah.
Now, I'm curious, what are some of the specific challenges that these women are facing as they're kind of navigating the Web3 space? It's not always easy being a trailblazer.
No, it takes a lot of courage and resilience to break new ground.
Yeah, and one of the biggest challenges these women face is that same one that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Access to funding.
Funding is always an issue.
We know that these women-led startups are getting a fraction of the funding compared to their male counterparts.
It's unfortunate.
But why is that?
Well, bias is definitely part of it. There's a lot of research that shows that investors who are predominantly male are more likely to invest in founders who look like them and share their experiences. It's unconscious, but it's real, and it has a real impact on who gets funded and who doesn't.
It's like the self-fulfilling prophecy. If women aren't getting funded, they're less likely to succeed, which then reinforces the perception that they're not a good investment.
Exactly, and it's not just about the money itself. It's about access to networks, to mentors, to resources that are often closed off to women.
It's like there's this whole ecosystem that's built around supporting these male-led startups, and women are often left to figure things out on their own.
That's why it's so important to have organizations and initiatives that are specifically focused on supporting women entrepreneurs in the Web3 space. We need to create alternative pathways, build new networks, challenge the existing power structures.
So it's not just about changing individual minds.
No, it's about changing the system.
It's about changing the system itself.
Absolutely. And that's a long-term process that requires a multi-pronged approach. We need more women in venture capital, more female angel investors, more mentorship programs specifically designed for women founders.
And we need more visibility for the amazing work that women are already doing.
Exactly. Celebrate their successes. Amplify their voices, inspire that next generation of female leaders.
Now we've been focusing a lot on like the blockchain and the cryptocurrency side of Web3. But let's not forget about the metaverse, that immersive digital world.
What's the landscape looking like?
That everyone's talking about.
For women in the metaverse, are they facing similar challenges?
Are they facing similar challenges?
It's an interesting question because on the one hand, we see that women are these early adopters of metaverse technologies. They're spending more time in those virtual worlds. They're engaging in hybrid experiences and really pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
We talked about that earlier. Women are drawn to those metaverse experiences that kind of blend the physical and the digital, like
virtual fashion
or
online fitness classes.
Online fitness classes, exactly.
But on the other hand, we also see a familiar pattern emerging. A lack of representation in the development and design of these metaverse spaces.
So while women are actively using and shaping the metaverse as consumers, they're not necessarily the ones building it.
That's the concern.
And that's a problem because...
I think that's a problem because if the metaverse is primarily designed by men, it's likely to reflect their perspectives, their priorities, and potentially even their biases.
It goes back to that blueprint analogy. If you only have one perspective shaping the design, you're going to end up with a space.
You're going to end up with a space that's not truly inclusive.
That's not truly inclusive or representative of everyone.
Or representative of everyone.
And that can have real-world consequences.
It can.
It can limit opportunities for women, reinforce stereotypes, and even create these unsafe or exclusionary environments.
Exactly. So how do we address this?
How do we address that?
How do we ensure that the metaverse is a space where women feel welcome, safe, and empowered to participate fully? Well, it starts with representation. We need more women involved in the development, the design, the governance of these metaverse platforms. We need their voices at the table, shaping the rules. Setting the standards and making sure that these virtual spaces are truly inclusive.
It's not just about creating avatars that look like women.
No.
It's about creating a metaverse.
It's about creating a metaverse that reflects
the values and priorities of women.
The values and priorities of women.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
In this deep dive. We've explored the potential of Web3. We've highlighted the challenges that women are facing. And we've showcased some of the inspiring women who are already making their mark.
But we're not done yet.
We've got one more part to go.
One more part.
And I'm really excited to shift gears and start talking about solutions. How do we actually move the needle?
How do we move the needle
on gender equality in Web3? How do we make this vision of inclusivity?
How do we make it a reality?
A reality.
That's the million-dollar question, and that's the one we'll tackle head on in our final part. But before we get there, I want to pose a question to our listeners.
I like it.
Based on what you've heard so far, What do you think is the biggest obstacle to achieving gender equality in Web3?
Okay, so think about that.
We'll be right back.
Everyone will be back in just a moment.
In just a moment to explore some potential answers.
To explore those answers, and we'll
share our thoughts.
Share our thoughts as well.
Stay tuned.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into women in Web3.
We've explored the potential, we've highlighted the challenges, and we've showcased some of the inspiring women who are already making their mark. Now it's time to talk solutions.
Okay, so we left our listeners with a pretty big question.
We did.
What is the biggest obstacle to achieving gender equality in Web3?
Yeah, I'm curious to hear what they came up with.
I am too.
What do you think?
I think that...
Yeah, what are some of the things?
I think some of the things that we've already talked about, like that funding gap.
Yes, access to capital is so crucial for any startup, but it's especially challenging for women-led ventures.
Right, and it's not even just the amount of money.
No, it's not just about the money.
It's who is making the decisions.
Exactly. It's about who's making those decisions about where the money goes.
Right, like if women aren't represented in these venture capital firms, they're not going to get a slice of the pie.
And that's a huge part of the problem.
Yeah. So how do we do that?
Yeah. How do we make sure that investors are evaluating startups based on merit and not gender? Right.
Well, there are a few different approaches.
Okay.
One is to increase transparency and accountability in the investment process. Make the criteria for funding decisions very clear.
Okay.
Track the demographics of the founders who receive funding, and just hold investors accountable for creating a more equitable playing field.
So it's about shining a light on the problem.
It's shining a light on the problem, making sure that everyone is playing by the same rules.
Exactly.
Another approach is to create more opportunities for women-led startups to actually connect with investors.
Yeah, how do we do that?
This could involve hosting pitch competitions specifically for women.
Okay.
Creating mentorship programs that connect female founders with experienced investors, or even setting up dedicated funds that focus on investing in women-led ventures.
So it's really creating these alternative pathways and support systems that can help women kind of overcome these systemic barriers that they're facing. And it's not just about the financial side of things either.
Right.
We need to address the cultural barriers as well.
Okay, so what are some of those cultural barriers?
Yeah, thinking back to those interviews with the women leaders that we talked about in the last part, they talk about feeling like outsiders, having to work harder to prove themselves, dealing with microaggressions and biases.
Yeah, and that feeling of not belonging.
It's tough.
Of not being taken seriously. Yeah. Having to constantly code switch to fit in.
Exactly. And that can take a real toll, both personally and professionally.
Absolutely. It can lead to burnout,
it can,
self-doubt, and ultimately women leaving the industry altogether.
Yep. So how do we change this?
Do we change the culture?
How do we create a Web3 space that's truly welcoming and inclusive?
Yeah.
Well, it starts with awareness.
Okay.
We need to acknowledge that these biases exist, that these cultural barriers are real.
And they have a real impact on women's experiences in the Web3 space.
Right. So it's about calling out that bad behavior,
it is.
Challenging those assumptions, and creating a space where everyone feels safe.
The safe space.
To speak up and to be themselves.
Exactly. And it's not just about talking the talk.
Right.
It's about walking the walk.
Yeah.
Companies and organizations need to actually implement policies that promote diversity, equity, and inclusion.
And that looks like what?
They need to create mentorship programs.
Okay.
They need to offer flexible work arrangements.
Okay.
And they need to ensure that women have equal opportunities for advancement.
It's about creating a culture where women are not just tolerated, but celebrated.
Celebrated where their contributions are valued.
Where they can see themselves as leaders and innovators.
Exactly. And this is where everyone can play a role.
Right.
Not just companies and organizations, but individuals as well.
Okay, so what can we do?
Yeah, what can we do as individuals to support women in Web3?
There are so many things, big and small.
Yeah.
We can amplify the voices of women in the space, share their stories, promote their work. We can mentor and support other women, offer advice, make connections, and just help them navigate those challenges.
So it's about using our platforms, however big or small, to create a more equitable and inclusive space.
That's what it's all about.
Exactly. And being an ally speaking up when we see injustice.
Yes.
Calling out those biases and holding each other accountable for creating a Web3 that we can all be proud of.
We've talked a lot about the big picture.
Yeah.
About systemic change and cultural shifts.
Yeah.
But I think it's also important to acknowledge the power of individual stories. Yeah. Those personal journeys that can really inspire and motivate others.
Because it shows that it's possible.
It does.
That there's a path forward. Yeah. That the future of Web3 can be different. And those stories can also provide valuable lessons, insights, and strategies for other women navigating the space.
Yeah, I love that.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a challenge.
Okay, let's hear it.
Go out there and find those stories. Share them.
Yes.
Celebrate them.
Celebrate them.
And let them inspire you to take action.
The future of Web3 is still being written.
It is.
And it's up to all of us to ensure that it's a future that's equitable, inclusive, and empowering.
Absolutely.
For everyone.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into women in Web3.
It's been a pleasure.
We will see you next time